How's it going, everybody? Texas Man here. I hope you guys are all having a fabulous day. Please give this video a thumbs up if you guys really enjoy it. Subscribe if you guys haven't already. Also, do me the biggest favor of all. Hit the bell notification button and also head over to Twitch. Follow me at Douglas447 with a capital D. And we're going to be continuing on reading through my book series. This is going to be a really weird one. We're taking a quote-unquote short break from the Chronicles of Unifor. We're still continuing on with the Chronicles of Unifor storyline, but we're going to be reading a different type of book. This is called Delta Force. And, a little information I want to give to you guys is that I had never planned to write this book. This does take place inside of the Chronicles of Unifor. Inside of the Chronicles of Unifor universe. I ended up writing this book 3 months after I finished the Chronicles of Unifor 12, The Final Duel. The only reason I ended up writing this book is because I was like, you know what? I want to try something Chronicles of Unifor wise, but make it, instead of action, spaceship battles, lightsabers and everything, I wanted to write a book in the Unifor universe that was a little more grounded in reality and make it a more personal story. Not to say that Unifor isn't personal, like there's not like high stakes and that you don't care about people living and dying, but I wanted a little more drama. And I think I succeeded with Delta Force in that aspect. And so this ends up taking place, Delta Force. I decided to place it in between the end of Golden Lightsaber, which we just finished reading through, and it takes place at the end of Golden Lightsaber and before Chronicles of Unifor 8, the quest for the Ruby Gunship begins. Now you might be wondering, well, is this going to be interesting? Yes. This book is really cool to read and to listen to, of course. Both if you've read all 12 and then you read this one, or what I'm doing here is I'm doing 7, Delta Force, and then I will do Chronicles of Unifor 8 after this. So there are a lot of references and Easter eggs to 7 and 8 in this book. The reason I was also able to do Delta Force is because, kind of like with Star Wars in a manner of speaking, this book takes place in between the 30-year gap between the end of Golden Lightsaber and the beginning of Quest for Ruby Gunship. So there's a 30-year gap in between these two books. And the reason being is that Golden Lightsaber is supposed to be the epic conclusion, but a lot of people are like, I'm sure you could do other planets, Doug. I'm sure you could come up with another villain. I'm sure you could explode the Unifor universe a lot more. Which led me to do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Delta Force, and then the Final War trilogy. And I'm really excited to do this. This book is, however, extremely long. This is my second longest book. The book is about, I'm going to say, I don't remember. It's about 80 pages plus. So, I'm going to tell you off the bat, this is going to be a minimum of a 3-parter. I've got about a half an hour, so I'm going to jump on to reading. And if you guys want to copy this book to read in your own time or to read with me, let me know in the comments section. And as always, I will send you guys a Microsoft Word document via my email. So we're going to read the introduction, and then we will get reading as much as I want to. I'm curious as to how... The first chapter is actually half the book because I was so focused and centered on making this a drama that there is so much dialogue. So much dialogue. Yeah, there's a lot of dialogue in this book. So, I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, here we go. Intro. 4 years before Unifor learned of Nikolai Sith and went on a quest to locate the Ruby Gunship, the Red Moth, the team experienced something most humans believe is impossible. Douglas, Devon, Deborah, and Dave are on New Heaven, and then in the flash of a second, are, are, are sent back in time with no explanation how or why. Unit 4 eventually discovers that the two remaining inhabitants of the planet Delta Mega are responsible for the event and that the universe is in danger. Before long, Unit 4, Andrew Prime, Amanda Prime, and Ashbeka form an alliance known as Delta Force to defeat evil's greatest leader, Nikolai Sith. Armed with lightsabers, blaster rifles, and a 96 RP-30 rocket launcher, Delta Force travels the universe to save it before its end. Old allies such as Toa Ray Williams and Droid General Ace, with new enemies such as Nathan Sith and General Evan Piper, arise in this epic book. Prepare to venture one last time on board the NS-7 T-14 to planets like Dismander and Comfortoring, and old ones also like Cassando, C-7S6, and Yon 4, in an effort to locate one object, a super weapon to annihilate Nikolai, his son, his general, and his 5,000 demon army before the universe is no more. Get ready to travel through time as Delta Force enters the ARC 170 armored jeep, battles supernova spiders and teleporting spinosaurs, and leads their outnumbered allies to defeat evil, or at least return them to their time so the Chosen One may. Filled with mystery, war, heartache, and more lightsaber dueling than ever before, Delta Force will put you in a seat that you'll never want to leave until the story's final words are read by you. And so that's the intro. It's been a long time since I've actually read this book. So there's going to be a lot of characters. Like I said, this takes place in between 7 and 8. So there's a lot of characters, planets, people, and places and locations and things that you may not have any idea. And when I'm reading it, it may seem like, hey, this is a reference to this, but we don't know anything about it yet. This is a time travel adventure of sorts as well. So this also is going to flow into setting up where people are going to end up being in 8 of Chronicles of Unit 4. So like, if you end up skipping this book and you just go from 7 to 8, there's just people all over the place, and I really had to do that for 8 because I wanted everyone to just show up and things like that with no real backstory and explanation, because I wanted you to figure it out over time. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a writer's problem, and with 9, 10, 11, 12, I never explained a lot of things, so this book like fills in the gaps of like why people are where they are. So yeah. Here we go. Here's a nice little picture. This is, of course, from the Universal War. And here we go. My goodness, this video's already this long. I haven't even started reading. What? All right, here we go. Chapter 1. Let's see how far we can get before I run out of breath. Chapter 1. The Forces of Evil. I forgot how cheesy some of these titles are for chapter names. Our home was a peaceful... Let's try that again. Our home was a peaceful planet. There were oceans uncountable miles deep, and were filled with a variety of creatures most humans would not be able to name within a lifetime. We are not a warlike race of humans, though some may disagree on the matter. We are not like him, though I wish we were able to be so our military could defeat him once and for all. Our planet is Delta Mega, and it is my sad duty that I must write such a story that would never be considered to be published in my home library, or for that matter, anywhere we Primes live. My name is Andrew Prime, and my wife's name was Amanda Prime. Everyone on this planet has the last name of Prime, and for some odd reason, yet I can't understand why anymore. What? Everyone on this planet has had the last name of Prime for some odd reason, yet I can't understand why anymore than if you could have lived here for a total of 31 years. This is one of my daily log entries that I write down in my journal, and though I may not be able to be the one who is able to finish this unfortunate tale, I believe that it is my right and my duty to inform you, dear reader, that the pages that follow contain some of the saddest events that one could read about in the universe. Though that may be true, I am not able to stop my mind from telling you of an event that took place many years ago. An event that if it did not occur My beautiful wife Amanda may be alive today to help me to tell it to you, and make sure that I did not miss any details. So, I will begin the story when I started my greatest work in the year 4409, shortly after historical records state Unit 4 in the Corps defeated Satan a second time. It was a rainy day on the planet Delta Mega, while the human inhabitants were having their final day of rejoicing on their planet for the end of Satan. Delta Mega was a planet that was created by the explosion of a 22,000-year-old star in the far reaches of the uncharted space of the universe. It was a lifeless planet until God sent a group of humans to make it a core human home world, and a last line of defense against any form of evil that would arise. The humans there were given the ability to have the last name of Prime, and decided to make it a rule that all humans born on Delta Mega were to have the last name of Prime, in order to serve as a reminder of the first Primes, which made Delta Mega what it is today. The planet, with its special oceans, had many seasons and many forests. During the months of December to March, Delta Mega had a solid forecast of 200 degrees, with hardly any rainstorms or clouds. For the months of April to July, the planet experienced a harsh winter of bitter cold, no less than 5 inches of snow every 4 days, and blizzards that would have had the power to tear down a house in seconds. For the month of August to November, the planet enjoyed the coolness of what humans on Earth called fall. Trees would turn their leaves to the color of red, orange, and brown, only to have them drop to the ground and be torn apart by children like Andrew Prime. Andrew was about 1 year old and lived on the continent known as Delta 6. There were a total of 6 continents on Delta Mega, and were named by order to distinguish the human's place on the planet. If you were from Delta 1, you were born into a rich family and were thought of very highly in society. One who came from Delta 6 was thought of as a dummy, and was thought to have to obey, serve, and feed those from the higher continents. It was a hard life in Delta 6. Many of the population on the continent were homeless, starving, and broke. Most couldn't even pay a shuttle to leave Delta 6 and start a new life on a different continent. Because of this factor, many adults became thieves, and for the first time in Delta Mega history, a police force had to be formed to combat the rising threat. Soon the Council of Flint and President Jeremy Prime of Delta Mega ordered that because of the force of evil made by Delta 6, no one was authorized to cross into another continent without the permission of the Council of Flint. Ever since President Jeremy Prime made that order, life on the continents has been the hardest for everyone, except for a few rare birds on Delta 1. During Andrew's life growing up, the idea of the 3-course meal disappeared when he was 10. When he turned 13 and started dating the girl next door, Amanda, the thought of having 3 meals per day vanished, and only 1 meal could be served per day. Once Andrew turned 15, no one was able to afford purchasing electronics, toys of any sort, music, and movies. Theaters for movies, cafes, grocery stores, and even all forms of education open to the communities was forced to close down. By the time Andrew was 20 years old, every business was closed up, and forced Andrew to have to create rings for marrying Amanda. It was very hard for Andrew to grow up in society on Delta Mega, and it did not help that President Jeremy Prime had sent word to God on New Heaven that Delta Mega wished to separate from the Corps. What made the situation on Delta Mega worse was the President sent a message stating that Delta Mega no longer wanted Corps ships, fighters, or any other military equipment near their planet. Andrew was frustrated, along with his dying parents and Amanda, that their leader was instructing the Creator to never aid the Primes ever again. One could not even come to understand the anger the continents were in with the President's messages to God, especially Delta 6. If God allowed for these things to come about, Delta 6 would have to work harder to feed the entire planet, with its limited farming communities, and the entire planet would have no fleet or army of troops to defend itself against the forces of evil, should it return. Days later, God sent a message back to President Jeremy answering his request. It was not what I had hoped for. Prepare to return to New Haven, Devon, said Douglas Armstrong on board a ship to his brother. Leaving Cassindoe now, replied Devon. Dave and Deborah Armstrong entered the command bridge of the Corps ship and looked outside of the glass window to see the fleet they were a part of. The two adults sat at their stations and waited for Douglas to instruct Devon to activate the energy engines. This is Douglas Armstrong. All Corps ships prepare to activate energy engines, said the leader of Unit 4. All the Corps ships reported back to Douglas that they were prepared and blasted towards New Haven. The year was 4,429, and God needed the assistance to make the decision to allow Delta Mega to separate from the Corps forever, and that no Corps ships would be allowed to enter their territory. As the return message from God waited to reach the Council of Flint and President Jeremy's ears, Andrew began to craft two solid gold rings to be ready if Amanda accepted his proposal. After several days of hard labor, Andrew had completed his crafting of the rings, proposed to his true love, and was kissed on the lips when Amanda said, "I do." It was the most wonderful time in his life, as he was about to have a family of his own to provide for. The sad part of the wedding that took place that day was Andrew's parents dying during the ceremony of a heart attack. It did not help the fact that Amanda's parents were already gone. Though the loss of family members was recent for both primes, the wedding party was a success with relatives and friends from all over Delta 6. Cake, pie, soda, and much, much, much more was eaten that day. That day when the entire world seemed to be poor, its time, and focus only on two people, Andrew and Amanda. While the day went on, presents were given to the newly married couple. While the day went on, presents were given to the newly married couple, such as envelopes containing money and gift bags with baby supplies, as if the couple planned for such a thing in advance. As the day roamed towards the late evening, Andrew and Amanda left the church they were married in, strolled into a limbo, and talked about what their future plans would be. As the limo driver drove towards Andrew's farm property and house, Amanda realized her life was changing faster than she wanted it to. She was leaving behind her house on the other side of Delta 6 to live a life with her husband. She wondered if Andrew's property was better kept than hers, and was shocked at the sight of the property. She felt that the limo was approaching a castle. Andrew as her knight in armor, and she was a beautiful princess with her blonde hair, blue eyes, and other features resembling the fairy tale of Cinderella. As the limo came to a halt, the driver opened the passenger doors and escorted the bride in her dazzling dress onto the driveway. Andrew stood out of the limo on the other side and raced to Amanda to escort her inside of his farmhouse. Andrew quickly paid the driver, took hold of his wife's right hand, and the couple began the short-paced walk to the house. The limo drove away from the property, and the clock in the vehicle ticked to the time of 1 a.m. Andrew and Amanda entered the house, raced upstairs, undressed themselves, and began cuddling in their marriage bed. I'm going to end the video here, guys. I need to end the video here. And I'll see you guys in the next one for part 2 coming out very soon.